Hey guys, welcome back to Ronnie's Rambles. I don't know. I really didn't think about the name that much. I kind of just thought about it last minute, so I'm not really tied to anything. But anyway, it is Friday, July 31st. I just got back from the gym. Well, not just. I had to check my email. I had to get back to a few work stuff, and what help my 9-year-old with his bridge activity. They have these things called bridge activities. It's like an online learning management thing that they're doing. So it's like 10 o'clock, and I feel like I've already done a day's worth of work somehow. But anyway, it is July 31st. Tomorrow's August, which sounds crazy, and yet not, because it's happening. And I've had a pretty good week since my birthday, my first week into my 45th year, which is a little sidebar. So I had to have a conversation with the kids about how I'm starting my 45th year. And they're like, "No, Mom, you turned 44." And I'm like, "Right, but it's the beginning of my 45th year. And when you celebrate your birthday, you're celebrating the end of the year." And they were like, "Wait, what?" So we had this conversation. I said, "Okay, think about this. You're born, you're 0, and then you celebrate your first birthday. So you just ended your first year." And they were like, mind blown, right? So I joke with them all the time now that even though I'm 44, I'm really into my 45th year. But anyway, that was a total sidebar. So let's see, what else? I've kept up my running streak. So today I actually ran just really slow. Well, not really slow. I'm slower than I wanted to go. I don't know. I'm trying to not use any kind of adjectives when I describe things that I'm doing, if that makes sense. I don't want to rank things as good or bad. I ran, and that's the goal. So I did a little workout this morning after my gym's workout, where I just did 400-meter run. I do like two laps, which is 400 meters. At my little track that I use. So 400 meters and then 25 sit-ups and then 400 meters. So I did that 4 times. And so I would just get my mile in. So for those who weren't with me last week or don't know about my streak, my goal is to just run at least a mile a day in any way, shape, or form. So today's way, shape, or form was 4 400-meter runs broken up with some sit-ups. And that was really fun, actually. It's like a nice recovery. Yesterday, I ran a 10K, which is 6 miles, a little over 6 miles. And I used one of the Nike Plus guided runs. They have a guided run. It's Coach Bennett is the guy who does most of the guided runs that I do on the Nike Plus app. And I really like him and them, like the guided runs idea. So it's nice because I'll play music in the background, but if you use the guided run on this app, the coach will kind of break into your run, and either, depending on what kind of guided run you choose, they'll either break in with something to think about or a tip or some piece of advice or just telling a story. So it helps distract you on your run. And you get a little bit of feedback, like, "Hey, you're a mile into this," or "You're 5K into the 10K," things like that. So this particular guided run was called Headspace, I think, is a 10K Headspace run. So basically, Coach Bennett would chime in every half mile or so with something to think about, which, as I was running, was really great. But now, of course, post-fact, I can't remember any of them, but some of them were really good, and that I'll probably bring them up on the podcast again. But if you are interested in running and again, this is non-sponsored. This is just me. I use the Nike Plus app. If you want to friend me, you could probably do a search for just Ronnie Noon and find me. I think you don't need an email. And it's a great little app. You can do intervals, you set a goal for distance, set a goal for time. And if you have friends that are using it, you could see how many miles they've run. And so I have a couple friends in there, and we kind of push each other, which is always really helpful. So my one friend, Patrick, he last month, 2 months ago, I ran a 100-mile month, which was a goal of mine. And then that inspired him to run a 100-mile month, which he's done. And then earlier this month, we've been going like, it's great because it'll put you in a rank of all your friends, and it'll say, oh, you're fifth or fourth or first or whatever in mileage. So it'll be like, I'll look at the app and it'll be say, Patrick is 2 miles ahead of you. So then I would run 2.2 miles and then it would say Ronnie is 0.2 miles ahead. And so we had this like back and forth. He has since injured himself, so we're not, I can't push him right now until he heals up. But if you're looking for that little extra bit of motivation, I highly recommend any app that you can friend people and kind of keep track of each other. So I'll try to I'll share a link to the app that I use in the post if you want to friend me. So other updates for my week, I can't even. My teenager has cooked for me twice this week, which has been fantastic. And he actually seemed to enjoy it for the first time. Also fantastic. Now, those of you who may have been following my blogging craziness for the last 15 years, I have always involved my kids in the kitchen. I actually used to do cooking videos with my teen when he was a toddler, and they were horrible bad videos if I go back and look at them, but they were still fun. To me, they were just a fun way for me to like involve him and kind of, I don't know, scratch this itch I have to like share. So it was kind of like double duty. And I would just put the same computer I'm using now maybe, up on a stock pot, and we would just cook, and I would talk to the camera and share what we were doing. And then we started a whole series where we would do like produce picks, where him and I would share or we'll try something new we've never tried before out of the produce department, like prickly pears or, I don't know, some crazy squash or something. And when he was young, he was always game for it. It was really, really fun. And then, of course, he got older, so we kind of pulled back a little bit on including him on YouTube videos. And then my youngest, not as adventurous, so they didn't really kind of have we didn't have the same feel. Regardless, I've always tried to involve them at a young age in the kitchen. And as they got older, you know, it's their role in the kitchen kind of changes. And then as they got even much older, sometimes it's not worth the argument, you know. So I tried to instill a family rule that everybody would be responsible for one meal a week. And we go through phases where we do that for a few weeks, and then it just gets easier for me just to handle all the food stuff. And then I'll try again, and then it'll get easier. So, but just like everything in life, I feel like the attempts are where the progress is made. So even though we don't succeed in doing it all the time. So a few years ago, when I went back to a traditional job, like a 9-to-5, I said to my husband, there's no way I'm going to be coming home at 5:36 and being able to cook every night. And so we started doing like the meal kits that you get so that he can cook, because my husband's not a great cook either. But what I figured out was that these meal kits, not only great for my husband, who doesn't really have that much experience cooking, they were really good for the teenager to learn how to cook, because he has instructions, he's got everything measured out, and it's kind of like a nice, slow, what's the word I'm looking for? Like low entry into cooking, where you don't have to come up with the idea, and you don't have to measure all your ingredients, and you don't have to worry about having things in stock and those kind of stuff. So, but they're a little pricey. So once their prices started to go up, or I lost my coupons or whatever, we kind of canceled them. But then when a coupon would come, I would re-sign up. So anyway, long story short, we still do meal kits now and then when I can hop on a deal. And when I get a coupon, I'll hop in, get a couple of boxes. And so it's been a couple months since we've done it. And we got our first box in a long time this week. And so my teenager I said, pick one you want to cook. And so I think it was Tuesday, he cooked some kind of chicken over rice kind of meal. And it was delicious. It was really good. And he did a great job. I barely helped. I was not even in the room most of the time. So that's always kind of rewarding to have your teenager prepare a meal for you. So the next day, we were deciding what we were going to have for dinner. We kind of have a loose meal plan in the summers where we pick like 5 meals, but we might mix it up and based on like kind of just how we feel day to day. So the next day I said, hey, the 2 meals we have left to cook this week is chicken, but we just had chicken yesterday, or salmon, but I had salmon for lunch. So what do you want to do? And he said, well, why don't we make the other box, the HelloFresh box? And I said, oh, that's a good idea. I said, but I promised your brother that he didn't have to help till Friday, and I don't want to make him help tonight. And he goes, oh, I'll cook it. And I went, really? I was like, okay. So 2 nights this week, he took the lead on dinner, again, with the kit, but I'll take that as a win. And he made dinner for the family. And it was really, really fun and great. And I'm happy that he kind of there was like a small spark there of excitement of cooking instead of dread for the first time ever. He's 15. So I think maybe all of the work I did as a child is finally going to start paying off. Hopefully. Anyway, so that was other things that happened this week that I can think of. So the real reason why, well, I shouldn't say the reason, there's really no reason, I'm just rambling. So if you're still listening, but there were 3 things. I actually took notes of things that I wanted to talk about today. They're kind of cheesy, but we'll go with it anyway. So the title, I can't even read my notes. Right? The title of this podcast was Thoughtworms. So this was the big topic I wanted to talk about. This is like, if I was still blogging, something I would have crafted like a big blog post about, but I don't have it in me now. So you're going to just get my ramble. So my husband and I, we take a lot of walks in the evenings, especially now with quarantine and, the pandemic and everything. We're really trying at least 4 or 5 days a week. We'll go out after dinner, take the dog and just kind of walk and talk, which is fantastic. The fact that he's into it is fantastic. I feel like 10 years ago, there's no way if I said, hey, you want to go for a walk? He'd be like, sure. But now after dinner, he's like, hey, are we walking today? I'm like, yes. So I get really excited because I just feel like it's kind of something positive that he's kind of grown into with me, which is nice. And we just get to talk without the kids interrupting us or without our phones. So it's just like a nice 10 to 20 minutes that we walk every day. And one of the things that we've been talking about recently is the idea of thoughtworms. So I don't know if this is a thing, like whether or not the way I'm going to describe this is what it would be described as. I did find an article that I'll link to that kind of matches what I'm talking about. So we've all had, like, let's say a song stuck in your head, or, which they call those earworms, right? So a song stuck in your head, or if, say, you're going on vacation, you might be preoccupied on whether or not you turned off the stove or something like that, right? So I feel like those are really common things. But the husband and I have been talking about this, like, thought cycles in our brains that we don't like, that we don't want to have anymore, but can't stop, right? So for him, it's usually something work related, or like he has some anxiety about things that he has to do at work. And it's funny because when him and I talked about it, I said, oh, this is exactly like my body image stuff. Like, I don't want to think about my weight or body image, or I just don't want to think about it anymore. Right? I'm tired of it. Like, I am 44 or in my 45th year, however you want to think about it. And I'm just like, when will I stop thinking about this? It's like, I feel like the seed was planted as a child for whatever reason. You could blame media, or you could blame bad influences of parents, or the cause is almost not even a concern to me anymore because I'm so far beyond it at this point. But now I'm more focused on, why can't I shut it off? Right? So, I've done a good job at suppressing it. And so the only way I can really like frame it for everyone, and I know other people share this, at least I think, maybe I'll feel less or even more insane when someone goes, no, you're crazy, this doesn't happen. So without getting too verbose, even though this is a podcast, so I guess I'm supposed to talk, right? when I was in teens and 20s, I was completely obsessed with being skinny. I mean, I'm not a small girl. I'm like almost 5'9", 5'8". And I'm bigger stature, right? I'm not petite, for lack of a better term. Like, I'm not tiny. I'm not like 5'1" and a teeny. I've always felt tall and kind of ogreish. So anytime I'm by someone who's kind of shorter than me, I always feel like an ogre. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, I had a side story there. I won't get into. No, I'll get into it. So a couple years ago, I don't even know now. It's probably been like over 5 years. I had the opportunity to be on the Today Show for a recipe that I posted for the Laughing Cow. I was working with the Laughing Cow at the time and coming up with recipes for the blogs. And one of the recipes they entered into this Today Show thing for burger. I'll try to find the old video and link to it in the post. And what's her name? I cannot remember her name. There's their nutrition health person on the Today Show. Her name, I'm not even going to try, because you'll just sit here watching me trying to figure out their name right now. You'll see it in the post. So anyway, she's very tiny and petite. I mean, this woman could not have been taller than 5'1", right? 5 foot maybe. And she's teeny. I guess like you don't even really get an appreciation for teeny people on TV. So when I stood next to her on the Today Show, like, I felt like a giant ogre. And at that time, I was actually pretty thin and feeling good about myself until I saw the video, which brings me to this idea of a thought worm. The first thing I thought of when I saw the video or the footage or the photos is, oh my God, look how big I look. And then I'm like, why is that my first thought? It's so annoying. And so I don't want it to be my first thought. It's not something I want to focus on, but it's still something that happens. And it still happens today. Like, that was even, again, it's like I was in my mid-30s at that time. And so it's something I'm constantly working on. So anyway, that was a side story about that. Let me try to remember where I was. So in my teens and 20s, pervasive negative thoughts about my body, which drove me to do horribly unhealthy things, right? I would fast, I would diet, I would take diet pills, I would, I would hop on whatever trend was supposed to make you melt away the pounds, right? And of course, it never worked, because my goal was always to be this skinny, which didn't mean anything to me. And I would just get stuck in this cycle where I would go, oh, I'll try this. And then like 2 days later, I'm like, forget it. And I'm like shoving pizza in my face. So it wasn't until I had children and after I had my son, I was like, okay, I need to just get healthier at this point. And if I lose weight, great. And if I don't, at least I'll be a good example. And so that's kind of how I went into a different mindset. And that's when I started to realize, oh, wait, this is how I achieve goals. It's not aesthetic driven. It's health driven, or being a good example. I guess it's still external reasons, but they were not focused on aesthetics. And so I actually, when I was in my heyday of blogging, I would get into arguments with people. I remember, it was another blogger, and we got into an argument in a Facebook group because she was talking about aesthetic goals and how it's important to set aesthetic goals. And I said, no, I don't. I said, that might work for some people. I'm sure it works for some people. But I think you need to be really conscious that it doesn't work for everyone, because anytime I have ever set an aesthetic goal for myself, whether it's not to be skinny or change the way my arms look, or I don't know, have a narrower waist or whatever, anytime I set aesthetic goals, they always backfired for me and my personality type, because I don't know why. Really, I think it's because they were unrealistic. And I always had this unrealistic vision of what I want it to look like, which I'm not going to look like. I'm not going to look like a 5'2" skinny petite woman. I'm 5'9", and I'm not petite. So the aesthetic goal, I feel like, is sometimes I don't know, for lack of a better term, like it's not marketed correctly in your brain. Does that mean that? Like you're trying to get something that's unrealistic, and so therefore you're already set up to fail and then you're going to just kind of create the cycle. So anyway, I shifted my focus to being a good example for my kids and being healthier and stopping the cycle of kind of dieting, binging. And that worked for me. And then it worked for me in the fitness realm. So when I first started working out, all previous attempts at working out were always because I wanted to look a certain way. And then when I started working out later in life, it became, I want to be fitter. I want to try this. I want to see if I can run. I want to see if I can get stronger. I want to see if so they weren't aesthetic goals at all. They were always kind of more performance-based, I guess you could say, or trying to do something that I've never done before. Like I ran a marathon in 2009 because I thought it would be a good way to prove to myself that I could do something. I could do anything. Like if I could do that, I could do anything. So it was like a way to prove things to myself. So it wasn't about, oh, I'm going to run so I get skinny. It was, I'm going to try to do this because I want to see if I can do it. So the goal completely changed. Okay, so I'm saying all that to say I'm still stuck in the thought worm of my body. So even though I have, over the course of the last 15 years, adopted really good habits, I eat better, I cook more, I run, I work out, I enjoy weightlifting, I walk with my husband, I'm active. I do all the things in a weird way that I kind of wanted to do back in the day to get skinny. But now I just do them to do them, right? Because that's kind of who I am now, which is really weird. But the thought worm still swims in my head about my body image, right? So I still kind of battle the, like, I don't know, the random putting on a pair of pants or looking in the mirror going, oh God, why do I feel so fat today? Or, and I don't want to have those thoughts anymore. Like I am done with them. Like I don't want to think about it anymore. I just want to kind of live this kind of healthy life that I'm living and have my body be whatever the result is of the lifestyle that I'm living. And I used to blog about this all the time, like trying to adopt that mindset of your body is going to be the result of your lifestyle and let it go, right? Let it go. But I can't let it go. Like I want to let it go, but I can't let it go. So this idea of, again, this is what my husband and I are calling thought worms, like something you're thinking about that you don't want to think about, that's not serving you, but you can't stop thinking about it. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense, kind of. So I did find this article, which I think I mentioned earlier, and I'll share it. And it kind of covers this idea. And what they say is that the inability to break this anxiety of thought is usually stress related. And then I try to self-analyze, because that's what I do. I self-analyze all the time. That's also exhausting. Sometimes I'm like, let's just not think about why I'm doing something. But I self-analyze, and I thought, okay, I do, when I am stressed, these thoughts are definitely more prevalent. And there are times I don't think about it at all. And so I'm trying to now capture those moments. But by doing so, I'm reminding myself of the thought worm. So it feeds itself. I don't know. Anyway, my point is, I kind of want to ask everyone if you have thought worms like this, and have you been able to overcome them? Or am I just insane? Which is quite possible. The older I get, the more I think maybe I'm just crazy out there. I'll offer this, actually. Doing this podcast. So one of the things, like, I really do like being online, right? But one of the thought worms that I'm always fighting is, like, no one wants to hear what I have to say. Like, who am I? Like, I'm just like a dorky mom who, like, is obsessed with the internet, right? Which I think maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago was kind of cool. Now I think maybe it was never cool, but I kind of thought it was cool. Now I don't even think it's cool, because the world is full of people that have opinions about things, and why do I have to throw mine in the mix? But yet I still want to do it. So then I just do it. So that's actually one of the reasons why I launched the podcast, because I was like, F it, I'm just going to do it. If no one listens, who cares? Like, I'm still doing it. So this is another kind of your thought worm battle I have within myself. Okay, no more thought worms. I'm done with the topic. All right, so there was 2 other things, and these were more fun things that I wanted to talk about. So, which one should I talk about first? Let's talk about the dinner party first. So Saturday, tomorrow, I'm hosting a dinner party. And so I was going to share what I plan on doing. And so first, let me back up a little bit. I would say maybe, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. By the way, to me, everything is 5 years ago. We have these couple friends. I don't know if other couples have a couple friends is a thing. So we have couple friends. And so one of my couple friends, we share a lot of interest in food. So I told you guys I'm like food obsessed. And my obsession over the years has become kind of more like fancy foods. Like I used to be obsessed with like pizza. Now I'm obsessed with like the most perfect seared steak or something, right? So, and what wine goes good with that? Like I get into that, and I feel like it's, for me, a healthy outlet to kind of manage my food obsession. So anyway, we have a couple's friend. I don't know how to say that the right way. And we used to go out to dinner to these fancy restaurants around Baltimore. And it was great because they shared the same interest, and we would like kind of critique the food and try different things and do the wine. And then, it gets kind of pricey to do these kind of fancy wine-based yuppie like restaurants, even though the experience is really fun. So I offered to cook for them one day. I happened to have a couple of steaks in the freezer, and I was like, let me cook for you. Well, that launched a new tradition, which is now we cook for one another. And when we first started this, like every about 2 months or so, we'll like just rotate houses, right? So when we first started, it was pretty normal things like, I'll make you our tacos that we cook, or we'll make steak and baked potato. And then we started one-upping each other in a good way. We're like, well, I'm going to make, I think the one time like they made ratatouille, which was amazing. And then I was like, okay, well now I have to come up with something fancier. So I made like Korean short ribs over squash, and we're like making desserts, and we do like the whole, like, so we started putting together menus. I found that I love putting together a menu. It's like the most fun thing in the world to like, well, for me anyway, I don't know. I really enjoy it. So I like to put together like an appetizer or two, maybe a salad. Which reminds me of salad. See, now I'm thinking about my menu tomorrow. A main course and a dessert. And then I really enjoy coming up with cocktail ideas. So I usually pair a cocktail. And then our friends are really into wine. And so they'll come up with wine pairings. So we've been doing this for a few years. And then even through quarantine, we actually did it virtually, which was really fun. We like put the computer, we had a computer in each kitchen, stayed separate, and we each cooked the same meal at the same time and then enjoyed it together, which was really kind of a fun quarantine idea. So anyway, they are actually coming over on Saturday, and we're going to have a 4-person dinner party. So my menu is this, but now I'm thinking I might add a salad. So I usually come up with either a meal or a spark to kind of influence the inspiration for the menu. So it's summer. I wanted to do seafood. And my husband and the husband of the friend couple love deviled eggs. So I thought, okay, let me do a crabby deviled egg. So I'm going to do like deviled eggs with crab meat and some Old Bay. But then I was like, I don't really like deviled eggs. I mean, I do, but I don't. They're like not my thing. So then I thought I'll also do like a crab crostini with like avocado and maybe like, I don't know, like a pickled jalapeno or something. So by the way, see all this and some things, like the menu's in my brain, but until I cook, it'll maybe change slightly because I'm very organic when I cook. So that's kind of the appetizer. Now, I didn't think of a salad, but now I might actually do a salad. I'll have to think about that offline. The main course is something I actually made with the husband last year or a couple months ago. He loves grouper for some reason. It's like a random fish, but anytime we go to a restaurant and they have grouper on the menu, he's like, "Oh, grouper." And I'm like, "What's grouper?" I'm like, "Okay." So a couple months ago, I wanted to experiment with a parsnip puree that I saw a recipe for, or I saw something about purees, and I was like, "Oh, it's kind of fun." And him and I cooked grilled grouper and parsnip puree, and we realized it's a really fun combination. For some reason, it tasted really good, and we really, like, the parsnip puree was okay, and the grouper was like okay, but then when you ate it together, you're like, this is really good together. So I wanted to recreate that and see if we can recreate that again. So I'm going to do grilled grouper with parsnip puree, and then I was going to grill like summer vegetables like squash and peppers and asparagus, and kind of just have them on the side, because I cannot make a meal without vegetables. It's just like, I can't. I actually at the beach this year, my brother-in-law made fun of me. He's like, "Can you just not do a vegetable?" I'm like, "No." It must be a vegetable with dinner. And then for dessert, which I already started, my mom gave me her old ice cream maker from like the early 80s. It still works. And I made coconut rum ice cream last night, and I'm going to make my first ever blueberry cobbler tomorrow to go with the ice cream. So that was the dessert. So now I need to come up with a salad idea, I think, because I like salads too. It's more veggies, right? So these dinner parties are my my indulgence. Like, I don't worry about, like, I loosely look at macros and like kind of keep my diet in check, mostly because I do have a habit of overeating. So it's the only way I can kind of maintain. See, I'm thinking about my thoughtworm right now. Like, why should I care? But truth be told, I do tend to still overindulge day to day. So I like to keep an eye on what I'm eating. But for these dinner parties, no thought. I just cook and eat and enjoy. Oh, and the cocktail, which I will link to this. I have a recipe on. I just shared it last week. Grapefruit crush with the appetizers, and then we'll do wine with everything else. So I wanted to kind of talk about that and kind of share my obsession with coming up with menus, and I'll have more next week too, which I'll talk about next week. Okay. So my last thing I'm going to talk about in this week's podcast is a really weird off-the-wall movie that I watched this week. So sometimes when I have insomnia, which isn't often, to be honest, I'm not that bad of a sleeper, but every once in a while I just can't sleep. So I'll go downstairs and I will randomly pick some cheesy, horror, sci-fi-ish, thriller-ish, drama-ish movie on Netflix that I never heard of before. Like, just literally I'll go through and go, never heard of that one. That sounds good. Okay. So I'll pick something random. So this week I watched this movie. I think it came out in 2018 called Seven in Heaven, which the more I contemplate the name, I'm not quite, I don't even want to get to it. But anyway, it's about teenagers. It kind of reminded me of a young readers, what do they call, like young fiction, like, oh my God, my brain is failing me. You can't do a podcast when you can't come up with the movies that you want to bring up. The girl Katniss, with the arrow, and all those movies that came out like 10 years ago, like the young author, like I don't know, dystopian teenage movies, right? So this was I like teenage horror. I don't know why. I just do. It's usually mind-numbing and I fall asleep to it, which is usually my goal when I have insomnia. But this one, I started watching and it sucked me in. So I'll link to it if you're looking for just like some cheesy movie. I can't say it was the best movie I ever saw, but the plot is basically they're teenagers, they're at a party. Two teenagers go in the closet for 7 minutes, on a dare or whatever. And then when they come out of the closet, they're in another version of reality. That's all I'm going to say. So if you've seen movies like Coherence, which is another, I really liked Coherence. if you like that style movie. And that movie, if that's a rabbit hole, you can go down and read about how they did it all impromptu and stuff. It's a fascinating movie, but I really enjoyed that one. And kind of like along the lines of like Primer, if you ever watch Primer. So these are really, I fear sharing this with you guys because you've realized how weird I am with my movie choices. But if you're looking for something kind of like a throwaway movie, Seven in Heaven, again, not a great movie, not the best performances, not, it's got some holes. And the ending is a little weird, but I really enjoyed watching it and it sucked me in the storyline and it was fun. And best part, and I don't know how many people will understand this reference, it has Gary Cole in it. And I love Gary Cole. I don't know if you know who Gary Cole is. He's the boss from Office Space that always goes, yeah, we're going to need you to come in on Saturday. You know, that guy? I love that guy. So anyway, I didn't know he was in it when I started watching it. And when he came on screen, I'm like, it's Gary Cole. So it made the movie that much better for me. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up this week because I actually have real work to do. I have a couple conference calls set up and I have to meet with some people online later this afternoon. And I'm over my 30-minute goal. So if you made it this far with me, thank you for joining me on Ronnie Rambles, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, guys.